Welcome to the Korea Pro Podcast, your weekly guide to understanding the most pressing and complicated developments shaping South Korea. We're your hosts, Jungmin Kim,
John Lei,
and Junha Park of Korea Pro.
Go beyond headlines as we explain not just what happened, but also what really matters and why it matters.
If you monitor South Korea for work or just trying to keep up, you're in the right place.
This is the Korea Pro Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Korea Pro Podcast. It is now Thursday, 3 p.m., March 19th, and
the Prime Minister of Japan is, I think, about to meet Trump, or did she meet Trump already?
I'm not quite sure, but there was already quite a bit of a back and forth between Tokyo and DC.
Which we will get into very soon, but let's start with the biggest shit that happened over the weekend and throughout the week. The whole saga of Trump thinking, oh, maybe I need allies to come to Hormuz. Oh, maybe not. I don't need them. Actually, I do need them to sort of saga since Saturday, was it?
Pretty much. The guy's just a giant man baby. Throwing tantrums left, right, and center. He finally realized that he made a huge doo-doo and that Israel is not the only ally that he needs. You know, say what you will about George W. Bush's administration and the way they conducted the Iraq war. At least they gave months of notification in advance. Sure, things still went sideways, but at least the rest of the world knew that it was coming. But for this Iran war, you know, one morning we all woke up and said, oh, okay, so I guess we're having another war in the Middle East. And with all of Europe and Asia just caught unaware with this entire war going on over there, everyone thought, okay, fantastic. The reason why past American presidents have not launched a war against Iran was precisely because of everything that happened that they knew was going to happen. But apparently Trump had no idea, because who could have possibly thought of it?
And actually, people did see it coming. Now it shows, like, Washington Post exclusive of the National Intelligence
You're talking about Joe
Council.
Kent, right?
No, National Intelligence Council report was a separate thing. They basically said that it's a war hard to exit, actually. It's going to take a long time for the regime to stabilize the way that the U.S. wants. And the Joe Kent thing was another hit for Trump that triggered, I think, saw the tantrum, because Joe Kent is the head of the counterterrorism.
Or was.
And he resigned very publicly, saying that in good conscience, I cannot support America's war against Iran because it did not pose immediate crisis to the national interest of America. And then domestically, this is going on. And then on the allies front, on Saturday, Trump began with a Trump Truth Social post saying, oh, the countries impacted by this, Japan, South Korea, Australia. Was Australia mentioned?
Yes,
Australia was
Australia and the
mentioned.
UK and China
And France.
should join and help us out in the, to make sure that the oil vessels can sort of come through. And then everybody was like, excuse me. And then over the weekend, South Korea was like, also it's me, but they did not really say anything, right? Because they have to tiptoe around. But what happened with the European countries and Australia is that they pushed back very, very
Publicly.
and harshly. And it looked they refused. And it looked like rejection hurt on top of the domestic stuff that was going on. And then fast forward Tuesday, Wednesday, we woke up and yet another post where Trump, it was a day after he met Irish leader and said he was like very disappointed with NATO countries for not coming for us when we have defended many of these countries and several others, which probably included South Korea and Japan and maybe Australia, when we defended them for 40 years, blah, blah. And then he posted, actually, you know what? We don't need anybody's help, and we never did, all caps. America is the most powerful country in the world. And then we published an analysis, thankfully with a caveat. And then next morning, which is this morning.
The caveat being that Trump would likely backtrack.
Yeah, and he did. How did he backtrack this morning?
He basically said that he was thinking about outsourcing the entire Strait of Hormuz to all the countries that require, which is basically what he said, before he got through the temper tantrum. But yeah, basically, the man is realizing that, oh, this is a team effort. But, after he crapped all over the place and wants everyone else to clean up his mess.
And one of the crap specifically are the mines. So he wanted the minesweepers, but it's difficult to say. It's not a very not every country has it, first of all. Japan does have it.
Japan has the more minesweepers than South Korea does, yes.
Right. And that's why Seoul is keeping a very close eye on the summit result between Trump and Takaichi, because whatever Takaichi decides in Washington will impact Seoul's meeting, Choi Hyun's meeting with Rubio next week, because this issue will come up.
Uh-huh. Now, this is a very important point. South Korea is likely just on its edge of its seat regarding this Trump-Takaichi summit. And that's because we have to remember that before South Korea agreed to make that $350 billion investment in the U.S., before South Korea made that decision, South Korea was like, all right, let's talk about this internally and see what's the best way forward. But then while South Koreans were still talking about it behind closed doors, Japan said, oh, here's $550 billion, America, please take it, which effectively ended any kind of negotiations within South Korea, because South Korea had to move fast. Now, with this talk, there are signs indicating that Takaichi might not be willing to send any kind of battleships or minesweepers into the area. But if in the unlikely scenario that Tokyo says, okay, then that's going to put South Korea in a very odd and awkward position.
And let's discuss energy-related impact of all of this. Kang Woon-sik, the chief of staff of the presidential office, went to UAE and then came back with a very, very good deal, actually. Even Japanese outlets sort of praise, or, they sounded jealous, or so does JTBC says. What exactly was the deal, Jenna?
Right. So South Korea has secured 24 million barrels of oil from the UAE. It has been designated by the UAE, claimed by Kang Woon-sik as the first country that will receive the UAE's barrels of oil. So it is quite a significant deal, since South Korea is currently going through its own headache concerning how it can receive crude oil from the Middle East. There was a lot of questions yesterday at the Blue House after Kang Woon-sik finished his statement. There was a lot of questions of what is the back and forth here? What did the UAE agree to? What did South Korea offer in its stead? There was no details really coming up from that, except for the fact that Kang Woon-sik did acknowledge that he has received a lot of requests from Middle East nations, not just the UAE, on air defense systems. So like the Cheonggung-2 system, interceptor missiles, what have you, for their own air defense against Iranian ballistic missiles or drones coming into their stratosphere.
And also, isn't UAE the only country so far that said that they will actually come for America's aid with the naval stuff? That was yesterday, right? That's interesting. And also, Mel mentioned a potential supplementary budget. And what did he describe it, John?
Wartime supplementary budget.
He said quasi-wartime.
Quasi-war, what have you. The phrase wartime coming out of the president is never a good sign. But anyway, this supplementary budget comes up to 100 trillion won, which is what, $68 billion. And what he wants to do is that he wants to make sure that small businesses, that industries specifically are protected, that they would be subsidized, and that they would not face the entire brunt of this energy crisis that's going on right now. Because right now, energy prices, they are at $110 per barrel. That's according to Brent crude. And that's a significant jump, seeing how just 3 weeks ago, so it was around $70 a barrel. So yay, thanks, Donald.
But even so, we will run out pretty soon. Worth it?
Well, South Korea has 200 days worth of energy supplies.
What about Japan?
Japan has significantly more.
Yeah.
But
so they're hurting less, right?
Well, they are hurting as well. It's just that their cushion is slightly more cushier than what South Korea's got right now. But what's really important is that the $24 million that Tuna just mentioned just now, that helps to cover what South Korea had already released from its reserves. Now, the International Energy Agency announced that they will release 400 million barrels from all of their member countries of reserves, not all at once. But South Korea's release came up to about 22.4 million barrels. Instead of 24 million that South Korea secured from the UAE, that covers and then some just about the oil that South Korea had already released. And so that covers what, maybe give or take 8 or 9 days worth of energy. But it's not just about the price of oil right now. Getting all of that oil from the UAE sends a signal to investors, to the South Korean voters, that South Korea is doing all it can to secure continuous flow. There are already countries in Africa that apparently are seeing empty fuel pumps at the gas station. And if that sort of hint starts in South Korea, oh God, I don't even want to think about it.
Two last things related to Iran and the Strait. First of all, let's say next week when Rubio is meeting Jo Hyun, there is legal constraints. There are legal constraints for both Japan and South Korea. A little bit different, but they're quite similar. Basically, in South Korea, it needs National Assembly approval because it's considered zone, basically. And there is a high chance that there could be casualties, right?
Oh, yeah.
And despite that, it's not the first time that the Trump administration sort of disregarded that there are, national deliberation system and procedure.
Yep.
And so I wouldn't be surprised that wouldn't be persuasive enough from Rubio's perspective. Let's say that Jo Hyun goes there and Rubio will be like, oh, well, we kind of need something from you guys and blah, blah. What can South Koreans actually get a workaround on? Like, what can they actually provide?
Well, South Korea does have a Cheonghae unit just a couple miles away from the strait. Yeah,
The Gulf of Aden.
And the Gulf of Aden. Correct. So they have done special operations there for the past decade.
Anti-piracy.
Yeah, anti-piracy, although they don't have the assets that the U.S. is looking for, considering Aegis level vessels or warships, minesweepers, what have you. Even the current backlog of South Korea's own minesweepers, they're not really ready for overseas operations just yet, only in blue water operations surrounding the peninsula. There is a lot of constraints that when South Korea actually decides to send the Cheonghae unit to the Hormuz Strait in 2020, they had a precedent where they did send it, but it was a completely different situation. Now, as you mentioned, they do need National Assembly approval under the Constitution. The National Assembly will pressurize the president, and even if they don't pursue National Assembly approval, it'll probably be used against them in the June elections.
So sounds like South Korea could send good thoughts, right?
And
good
prayers.
vibes and
Prayers.
prayers and good thoughts. Okay. But it still will be something South Korea will be really having a headache about because Trump has been mentioning random, kind of related but unrelated stuff while ranting throughout this week. Like he has been referring specifically to South Korea and Japan, which hosts a U.S. forces, saying, the thing I mentioned about we have defended them forever. And
apparently
then
45,000 troops.
Oh,
right?
yeah, of course we didn't know that. He increased that number. And also he was like just trying to sound philosophical, like it's time we rethink if it's wise we continue level of protection for the allies.
Because
and we
as
didn't have to be
everyone
there
knows-
for Ukraine.
Because as everyone knows, the United States has stationed troops in South Korea purely out of the goodness of their hearts, and they gain nothing in return.
Speaking of which, my last point about Iran was China.
Yeah.
That was
The country that's doing nothing and winning.
Dude, I thought it was pretty funny over the weekend that China was mentioned. Like, imagine you're a Shia and you woke up and saw that post. Like, what would you have thought?
I would have first sat down
That's all.
because I'd be too dizzy, and then I would have had trouble breathing because I would have been laughing too hard.
Let's move on to non-security topics. Start with the Yellow Envelope Act, the Trade Union Act Amendment.
The pro-labor law.
Yeah, and that grace period ended and implementation started March 10th. And already there are over 400 requests for negotiation from various types of unions. But this was what we already expected.
Of
right?
course, yeah. Anyone who paid attention knew this is going to happen. One of the things that the Yellow Envelope Act says that unions will be able to negotiate directly with the parent companies, not with the subsidiary companies that are employing them, but with the actual main company that employed the subsidiary company to employ the workers. And because of this, well, the reason why a lot of companies have done this for so long is because by having a subsidiary company in between the main parent company, that's the one that's having these contracts out, they get to have legal protections. If things go wrong, then it's a subsidiary company that has to bear legal responsibilities, not the parent company. But the Yellow Envelope law changes all of that. And so now the workers can directly negotiate with the parent company. So whether we talk about Coupang or Samsung or SK or Hyundai, they are just going all over the place. Even the public workers unions are now saying, some of them are saying that they want to negotiate directly with the president.
And it won't just impact manufacturing and logistics sectors. It will basically impact all of the sectors, even financial sectors as well. Whatever companies that you can think of that has a third party company that helps with outsourced work. And so basically for the delivery workers right now, be it CJ or from CLS or whatnot, they had to negotiate with the intermediary company in the past. But now they can negotiate directly, be it 호발임금제폐지, which is removing the clause for blanket payment for the overtime or anything else, basically, like benefits, welfare. They can negotiate directly with the bigger company. Let's move on to some of the stats. The employment statistics were out this week. People over 60s, I think the jobs for them, it got better, but also the unemployment rate for the youth that actually increased as well.
It's the same trend that we've been seeing for months now.
Yeah.
For youth, it's been dismal, and a lot of the blame can go to, say, AI. We just have been replacing a lot of white-collar jobs.
Which actually shows in the stats, but we have to keep an eye on it. I was thinking about writing about this, but it was just a bit unclear if it was a momentary dip or not. But the IT sector was the biggest hit in the past quarter. But the survey authorities also cautioned that it was after 55 months of continuous increase in the jobs in that sector. So it could be a dip momentarily. Also, there was marriage state this morning. It was interesting because it's the highest number of, weddings, marriages in 7 years, basically. So pre-pandemic level, it seems. But also
Must be nice.
many of the headlines interesting was now women are older in these couples. How interesting. Apparently 20% of the newlyweds were, guys were younger, and that made headlines for some reason.
어쩌라고.
Let's move on to Freedom Shield then. The U.S. South Korea joint drills, it ended, or is it ending?
No, it completely concluded just today. So the Joint Chiefs of Staff from the ROK side, they announced alongside with a joint press statement from USFK, they were emphasizing the combined readiness, interoperability between the two forces, and also how they drew on lessons from recent conflicts to inform training planning.
Is the alliance still ironclad? Is it still 같이 갑시다?
Well, that's what they say.
Where do you actually go? It's I don't want to go.
그냥 있자. Let's just
stay.
Right, so 같이 갑시다. And then, so what they were saying was that the drills did support preparations or ongoing preparations for the conditions-based transfer of OPCON, which Lee Jae-myung has been singing about throughout his presidency. And it was broadly framing the exercise as promoting regional stability rather than actually mentioning North Korea. So last year, within the Freedom Shield announcement and also the conclusion of Freedom Shield under the Yoon administration, they were very explicit about a North Korea mention. But of course, within this administration, that has been very much hushed. It has involved participation from UN command member states. Some related field training exercises will be going on until next week, I believe, until the 27th with ROK USN troops. So we will have that to look forward to.
Week ahead, of course, Rubio and Jo Hyun meeting next week if Jo Hyun does not duck out, or Rubio in Paris on the sidelines of G7, potentially a foreign ministers meeting. But much, much more importantly, BTS concert over the weekend.
The real army.
The real army. And I think maybe one of the strongest and most intimidating army that we can see nearby right now. Very nearby, our office is actually right next to it.
I'm not going to say anything about this army. They scared the crap out of me.
Well, it's a public and free ticketing and concerts. So approximately 22,000 will be gathered right in front of the performance area. But overall, it will be police is estimating over 260,000. And so because of that, a lot of, government emergency preparation system has been implemented this week. And the terrorism alert went up from caution to a warning level mid this week. And we are seeing fences all over the city.
The barricades,
Barricades right now. I see that a lot of police forces from non-Seoul region also are mobilized to Seoul. If you are someone listening to this in Seoul, just try not to get anywhere near Gwanghwamun unless you want to see it. Starting Friday night, there would be a big crowd gathering And especially if you're driving, don't come near Gwanghwamun on Saturday.
The roads will be blocked.
The roads, all of the roads will be blocked.
I'm staying far away.
Lastly, it was like the Super Week for annual general meeting for most of the big companies in South Korea, all the chaebol companies, which were very important actually because they are the first ones that happened after the Commercial Act amendment. And so we are keeping a close eye on it. But next week, there are even more. There are over 1,500 going on. So let's just keep an eye on it. But I think largely it's basically the same focus in most of the companies right now because, it's like shareholder rights related issues.
And all of this information will be sent to email inboxes by Monday at 2 p.m. by the newsletter. So if you'd like to know more, please subscribe. Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We'll brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why it matters, delivered to your inbox every morning.
If you want to stay ahead of the curve, sign up for Korea Pro to get a full package of insights, from daily expert analysis to profiles, month in review, week ahead, and more.
And until next time, I'm Jungmin Kim.
I'm Junho Park.
And I'm John Lee, and we'll see you next time on the Korea Pro Podcast.